Goodness.
He has to recapture the streams, I guess.
Yeah. Oh.
Okay, tell us when we're live.
Your machine.
I will leave you most of the commentary for Safari Leatherland, so...
That's fair. I have been playing that game just a tad bit lately.
Yeah.
Only a tad, because, you know, trying to beat Human Impossible Mashing is a bit of a grind. Just a little bit of one.
But what did you do with those, with that run? Did you reject it, or...?
I'm not a moderator, so...
Oh, okay, you're
I
not
don't
a
know anything
moderator.
about that. I made my appeal to who spoke about it with Extreme Prime, who are both moderators, and it's still kind of up in the air.
Mm.
The general consensus is that it should have been approved in the first place, but now that it is, it has to be discussed, like, what needs to be done about it, because
we're live.
We need to discount the runner. Aha, fair enough, thank you. There we are. Anyway, good to see you all again. Sorry for that little snafu we had there in the things. Looks like we are back. Hopefully good to go for too long. Appreciate it, AK. So anyway, we've got some streams to set back up here. We've got a few runners here, maybe showcasing. Anyway, back to... Sorry, I'm head scrambled a little bit. That's what happens when computers go down. You don't know what happens up here. Shout outs to everybody in the RGL land waiting on us. Got quite the few number of viewers that recovered. Glad everybody's back to make it. Post this again. So anyway, we've got quite the lineup here. We'll go ahead and discuss the games as we get ready for everybody to start up. For Safari and Letterland, yes, the artist is right. I have been playing quite a bit of this game lately, so there's a little bit I'm going to talk about it there. Whereas when it comes to Chip and Dale and DuckTales, I really have nothing to offer in terms of knowledge. That'll be all on the person that you're currently speaking with right now. He has everything he needs to offer for anybody who has any questions about these games. And you said you've also played Little Mermaid, correct? Don't you have a sub 7 in that game, if I'm not mistaken?
Yeah, I made my sub 7 during a race, which was a 3-loop race. The first loop was I retimed after the race because I had the feeling it was really good, because I had a good RNG, and it ended up being a 757 or 758, I don't remember, but that was my ultimate goal for that game, so I finally stopped playing it because it's a massive RNG fest.
Yeah, and I've actually always been curious. I've never known what it's like to set a PB in a race. That's got to be just an awesome feeling. But to like just really come together like that when it matters, you know?
Yeah, it was the first and only time that it happened, actually. But in that game it's possible because there is no difference between race strats and sub 7 strats, unless of course you're going for 640 times, which need more aggressive gameplay. But if you're just using the correct strats and you get good RNG, sub 7 is definitely possible in a race.
Sure. And you're definitely not wrong about that. I picked it up myself when before I decided to not be a part of the event, but I managed a 7:15, I think, is my current PB, which is certainly not a bad time. I can use a lot of, but part of me just thinks, well, if I get to a point where I want the Walrus to cooperate, I may not want to put up with this game anymore, and I don't really want to get to that point either, but who knows, we'll see. And yeah, I've spoken with Lanks about the whole, like, pushing sub 655. It's just gets kind of disgusting.
Yeah, I remember Lanks going really mad at that game.
Lanks mad? No, please.
Didn't happen.
Never, ever. Following that, we have Mickey Mouse Capade, which I actually think, have we both run that? I definitely have run it. I don't recall if I had.
No, I didn't run it, but I know of many other NES guys from my favorite streams that ran it, like Hyrexen, which has the world record right now, and Whitman, which was the former world record holder.
RGL's own Yogi the Monk ran that game for a while, and I picked it up a little bit less than a year ago after HDQ. I enjoyed my time with that game. I did, however, learn that much like most of these games, grinding for a PB can be a bit of a chore because the RNG in that game is everywhere. And it's not just in boss fights. Like, as soon as you spawn new enemies, oh look, different enemy behavior and spawn points, and I had no control over it. Wonderful. So
exactly.
And you get a lot of that in this game. It's not like Little Mermaid in that regard. The boss fights, aside from maybe one or two, are actually pretty much exactly the same in Mousecapade. You have the crocodile, who is basically the Disney equivalent of JJ from Contra. Like, you can, the good patterns are the ones where he just stays entirely on the ground, and the others, well, he just wants to jump in the air a lot. The other being the snake, which is the stage 3 boss, probably the hardest boss in the game, who can has a pattern where he actually just straight charges you, and every boss in that game one-shots you. Like, they do as much damage as health as you have, so you can't take those hits. You can take hits from their shots, but you can't let them touch you.
Yeah, definitely. I guess we're good to go. I'm getting messages that we can start with a race.
Very well. And we'll talk about the rest of the games as they come. So they're getting set up for Letterland here. Now, for Letterland, the appointed category is for very, very short. Sub 4 is actually extremely easy to get in this game. Now, since it started, there have been some additional strats that have been discovered by one JKL, up to and including the fact that frame rules do determine RNG in this game. Because when you complete a level, which is just a standard platform level, you don't have to kill enemies, you can't die. It's an educational game, so they're not going to try and challenge you too hard. But as it turns out, it looks like up and away with the timer. So we'll go ahead and jump into our first few stages here. I don't quite know what's going on with JKL's stream there. Looks like he's doing a lot of resets.
RNG manipulation.
Yeah, so it's got to be, right? Alright, looks like they're going into it, and it's going to start us off. Now, the Yukon's a pretty standard stage. There's only a couple jumps you really need to hit. Off that slope, you want to hit the really, really high jump to get to the next hill, and then short jump your way up that hill, and then you've got a few more slopes to go down, which are just hold right until you get to the last one where you make your way up the slope, grab the box, and then you're done.
Yeah, as far as I know, this game, once you have learned all the route and you've fixed your execution, it all just matters which RNG you get during the whole run.
Yes, and the letters you get are actually part of the cluster, and the cluster that you get depends on the frame on which you press A to start the game. And by that I mean bypass the title screen, which you see in the top left. Once you press start or A, there actually I think it's start for that screen specifically. It fixes the letters that you get, and in normal mode you only have to get 6. Each stage you complete also has a set array of letters that you have to pick from. So for the first level, which is the Yukon, you have the last array of letters because Yukon is the last in the alphabet of the 5. So like V, W, X, Y, Z, which Y matches Yukon, part of that. Second stage, Swamp, same there. You've got I believe it's RSTU, and you get one of those letters as well. So here you have JKL moving on to the 4th stage, which to me is one of the more difficult stages in the speedrun. The jumps are a bit more meticulous. So you missed and hit a mushroom there. Now, the things about enemies in this game, they can't hurt you, but you don't want to make contact with them because they drain time. They cause Mickey to do this little flip animation where you really can't control your character.
Yeah, if they touch you, you just lose time because you're the kind of knockback, but something like a Ninja Gaiden knockback, something like that, but with no damage.
Right, but there's no damage boost to it because there's no iframes in this game. You don't need them. Looks like JKL's making his way through the pyramid. Last jump is a little tricky here. See if he can go stairs. He did. Grabs the box, and that's going to complete it for him. JKL's on a pretty good pace here for this game, which this is definitely the game he spent the most time with again, so it's easy to understand why. Gonna have I missed the letter there. Missing the letter is not what you want to do either. It's a waste of a second because Mickey has to do his little sound, and then you get to move on. This to me is actually the hardest stage of the run is the jungle. You have some fairly interesting jumps you have to hit here. Like right here, you have to do a full jump right at the edge of the bridge to clear the snake, and which he did not. He landed on the hippo there. That would make it even more unfortunate. You also want to make sure you're dodging the purple gems that have the letters, because if you touch one of those, Mickey has a stop animation where he captures it, and that drains a lot more time. You can lose like 2 to 3 seconds if that happens.
By the way, this is a perfect start for a race because this is a short game and easy to learn. The current world record is around 3:43, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm. Which is certainly a human possible time. Yes, that can most definitely be obtained by a human. There's currently some debate regarding that, but yeah, so between like a 3:40 and 3:45 is you're definitely going to be on world pace. Current PB myself is a 3:44, and there's still plenty of room. Looks like they're going to wrap up here at the Caribbean. Going to move on in the yep. Here we got JKL here. Going to take his last letter, which is going to be the letter A, best letter you can get. That's going to move him on to Chippendale. This is where the Italian Stallion is going to take over commentary. So have at it, Garrus.
Yeah, I know a bit of this game. So the first stage, the biggest issue of this stage is getting a good climb. You gotta stay close to being frame perfect, because you can save a lot of time in those climbs. Actually, Andy's world record has almost a test-like climb, and if you're able to top it, you're gonna save a lot of time. Trust me. That's the main thing. You gotta practice on stage 1, other than the route itself, because the route is not that hard, but you have a couple of damage boosts to save time and some tricks to reduce lag, which can be annoying in this first screen, but the rest of the stage is pretty straightforward. And also the boss fight is interesting. Where JKL is about to enter that boss room. We're gonna use for all the boss fights in this game that red ball, which damages the boss, and there is a certain pattern that you can manipulate doing those jumps like JKL did, and you'll get always the same pattern from the boss, and you will be able to get those 5 hits you need to kill him. Perfect boss fight by JKL, and also Mega Man X completed it very well. So coming up to stage 2, there is the first and only, apart from Fat Cat, RNG point, first choke point in the run. The boss of this stage is the spaceship, which can give you 3 possible pattern: high, mid, or low. The one you always want is the low pattern, because on the low pattern you can get even up to 3 hits per cycle. Well, there is a way to do 4 hits, but you need to be... I mean, I did it sometimes, but it was such a rare one that I will consider a good cycle. 3 hits is a perfect one if you want to get a good time.
4 hits isn't consistent, is what you're saying.
Yeah, 4 hits is almost...
JKL misses the first hit there on the mid pattern. Gets a high pattern to follow it up. That's really bad.
Yeah, but unfortunately, but luckily he got a free hit, because when he is off screen, you can still hit him. When it is off screen, you can still hit it like he did with the last hit. So that was a lucky one. Ooh, he recovered.
Unfortunate for Mega Man X there, he took a death in the spaceship. And this was when I was learning this game, one of my gatekeepers too. The thing that's so weird to me about it is you want good RNG, but good RNG also means the boss fight is actually more difficult because his hitbox is going to be in the way all the time. And of course he drops little aliens and yada yada yada. But for high-level runners, that's not even so much of an issue. You just want good RNG all the time.
Yeah, you always want to get to the boss with at least 2 HP, because you can at least survive at 1 hit from those green guys. Also, if you get double KO, the game goes on, so it counts as a kill. One of my last PBs had a double KO on that boss, but it doesn't count even the. You don't even lose a life. It's it just works.
It goes to the player, not to the house, which I think is interesting. Most games wouldn't allow that.
Well, this is a difficult stage because there are so many tight jumps, and
especially in the flash room.
Yeah, JKL doing it the risky way, also the fastest way, with just 1 HP, which can be risky for the boss because the pattern he can give you with those balls, those little candies is shooting can be annoying. You can get max 2 hits per cycle, and
yeah, and the thing that really changes how well this goes, he also has movement patterns that are random because he can come all the way in on the screen, and you want that because it means you get rich. You can get as many as like 3 hits during that, can you not?
Yeah, but luckily, even with the worst possible pattern, you will likely lose no more than 2 seconds. It's not as bad as the spaceship, in my opinion. So even with a bad pattern, if you're doing everything right, you won't lose that much. Also, it's another boss that you can hit when he's off screen.
Right, there's that. You gotta aim for the weak point, right in the chest.
JKL on the climb, which is a difficult one. So what we're gonna do here is pushing the screen as high as possible to ensure that those platform spawns start spawning, and so he will be able to reach the end of the level, which has no boss, and almost perfect execution from JKL. Actually, he's doing a great run so far for a race.
Yeah, it's been a solid run for sure. Get those tight jumps there and move it to stage G. I just remember this is Casino Cat stage. I couldn't remember the name, the letter of it.
So enemy with the death.
Oh, that's unfortunate. Some of those alligator jumps, ones where you have to basically catch yourself in between them, were always an issue for me when I was learning this.
Yeah, Zone G is considered a very relaxing stage because it's pretty straightforward and the jumps are easy. The boss is easy, so compared to the last 2 stages is really relaxing, and you will be ready to face those final 3 stages, which are like from another game. Which
yeah, they take some practice for sure. I is probably the least offensive of the 3, and even it still carries its issues.
Yeah, I'm actually curious if they're gonna do all the tricks in H and J that are the most difficult stages in the run.
Very good casino cat kill there from JKL. Yeah. Also, shout outs to Team Ship, as he's currently the only one with the surmountable lead here of clearing stage G. We have 3 Dale players on screen. Looks like we got enemy on now from Mega Man X. I didn't know they switched it over.
I actually thought that Dale wasn't allowed. But apparently the rules have changed.
Ant takes the fall there. That's unfortunate. Maybe if that red nose hadn't gotten in the way, it wouldn't have happened. We've got JKL moving on to stage H. Okay,
stage H. You can despawn one of those.
Pretty wild.
Oh, he did it. Nice.
Yeah, you got the bubble crab despawn, which is really, really good. Got to grab the box to try to take care of the flying squirrel. Timing of these was always a mess for me.
Optimizing the climb is another really big time save, and also you can.
Nice safety there. Ooh, good damage boost. I like that.
Yeah, that's what I would do if I were racing this game. That squirrel can hit you, and once you get hit from that, you fall into the pit and you die. So doing the safe way costs you only 1 second, I guess. So there's no really reason to not to go for it. So
nice.
I approve what JKL did. Yeah.
We're gonna move on here to the last 2 stages after obtaining that one up. We'll move to zone I. I is a bit of a 50-50 stage for me, at least as it has been. The first room is really annoying. Like, I've never been a fan of conveyor belt mechanics, and that's essentially what the fans employ. Just lots of resistance. And of course you have these pelicans that you can only hit in the legs, so you have to make sure you're at like a pretty reasonable jump height to be able to even clip them.
Yeah, the main difficulty of stage I is jumping on at the perfect moment to reach the top of the fan, and also doing the quick heal. The task heal on the caterpillar is something you gotta practice. There is an audio cue that Langs found. If you shoot the ball at when the cue plays, you will always get the perfect timing for the quick kill. That's a thing we all use when we're fighting that boss. Almost made that quick kill, well, not free, but definitely easier.
We're gonna go right into the boss fight here. It's weird. He's the person that taught me this game, and I don't remember audio cue. He showed me the visual cue, so I'm gonna have to probably ask him about that. The visual cue is something like, I think he has to get past a certain line, and then you throw the ball.
Exactly.
But
the audio cue is when the music hits, when the boss music hits the highest note, you gotta shoot the ball.
That makes a lot more sense. So JKL's gonna move on to the last and certainly hardest stage in the run. Here we have Zone J. With the best music, no less. The music in this stage is fantastic.
Yeah, Stage A soundtrack is great. Oh, he's doing already the damage boost, but he will get another HP refill. There it is.
There are quite a few of them in this stage. The only room where it gets kind of dangerous is here, because you got the axe damage boost coming up, and you have to make sure you don't take a hit from here up to the top, which with hat throwers can be annoying for sure. You gotta make sure you get manipulation for them. There we go. Nice neutral jump there. I like that.
Yeah, every runner does do it in a different way, but you just have to get 2 axe damage boosts. Once you get 2, you're okay. You can get them anywhere you want. I like to do that, doing the last 2 axes damage boost, but JKL did 1 in the first, for the second axe, and 1 at the last one. Okay.
Move on to the last stretch here. On the way to Fat Cat, another RNG heavy boss in the game. Probably the worst aside from Spaceship. Yeah,
there are some strats to adapt to every pattern he gives you, but they're pretty advanced stuff.
Very unfortunate hit there. He before the fifth hit, the ball fell down, it stunned him, and then when he went to pick the ball back up, the last ash dropped and it killed him.
Yeah, to avoid
he'll get the run back, and he took the win.
Yeah, to avoid the ball from stunning you, you just have to keep the B button pressed all the time, and release it when you want to throw the ball.
So now this is interesting. We got JKL starting DuckTales, and he started with the Amazon. I don't think this is not your typical.
No, this is a new one, and in my opinion, he did it. He didn't do that intentionally. He just mashed through the selection screen.
Although I guess if it's a race, you don't necessarily have to start with them, which is the most common way to go, because
I will always the B jump, nice.
Really I go for B jump every time. I love B jump. B jump's great. Ooh, nice. Oh, and he takes the death right after because he missed the platform. That's no good.
Ooh, wow, ooh. That's a 40 seconds time loss, because you start at the beginning of the stage. There are no checkpoints.
Now we have Enemy, who started the run as you normally see it, starting with Moon, and he actually gets the good Moon skip. Good for him. That's a really, really good start.
Yeah, there's actually we did it the old-fashioned way. Okay, so the reason why we start with the Moon is not just for the RNG. It's also because if you start with the Moon, you get a different. Scrooge starts in a different way, and you'll be set for the first to kill the first enemy. If you don't start at the Moon, you will likely get hit by that first enemy, so you will lose time. So that's another reason why you start. For some reason, if you start with the Moon, the Scrooge starts in a different position on the screen.
Never thought about it that way. I didn't think that was a thing, but
you will see that when JKL starts, he won't kill the first octopus right away like they all did, starting with the Moon. Maybe he knows that and he found a workaround, but usually we'll start with the Moon even for that reason.
Yeah, I definitely didn't know that. I thought it was just always just to make sure you could hit you could get Moon skip as quick as you could, because I mean if you miss Moon skip, it's just an easy reset. But it's a race, so we're not in that frame of mind, are we? So we have Ant moving on to DuckTales as well after clearing Chippendale. Got JKL working his way to Transylvania instead. I guess he's going to save the Moon later since he's already out of order. He'll most likely go to that last.
Yeah, he's going for Moon last because it's the last screen you can choose from the selection screen.
Got enemy moving on to the Sentinel fight. JKL had a really solid set. Took a couple unnecessary hits. But we'll see how it goes for enemy. I took a hit there. So, a little bit of a disproportionate hitboxing there. Takes a hit in the corner, but takes the finish right out of the corner, and then I'll clear that for him. Here we have JKL on the Magicka fight, who gets a high pattern and gets the hit, which I was well aware was possible, but it's very, very difficult to do.
Yeah, you gotta position yourself in the perfect spot, and the jump must be perfectly vertical. If it's not vertical, you will get hit. It's actually a glitch. It's not intended.
Right. But unfortunately, he also did just take a death on Magicka there. Got a little overzealous and aggressive with the pogos, but her hitbox went out one too many times. We'll see how the rematch goes. JKL also notably on his last lap can't take another death without having to game over, which they're finding out the hard way and grinding. There are no continues in DuckTales, which actually wasn't. You lose 3 lives, you start over.
And I guess they're running on easy, right? Yeah.
Yes. It's any game that can be run on the easy difficulty for this particular race is being run on easy. So that includes DuckTales, Magical Quest, and Lion King are all being run on easy, and Safari and Letterland, which normal is the easiest difficulty. So enemy polishes off a Magicka fight there. He's going to move on to the mines. Even though it looks like he's starting behind what JKL is, JKL did not go to the moon first, so he's actually a stage behind where enemy is. Enemy's getting ready to finish the 4th stage, whereas JKL is working his way through his 3rd.
Yeah, enemy also is at his 3rd stage, I guess. Since he's doing the mines, he's missing. Oh no, it's okay. He's at his 4th. He's only missing Himalaya. Yeah. Sorry, my bad.
No worries. Down the chute. I always love these pogos on the ducks on the way to the boss fight. One of my favorite things to do in the run. It's so easy to do, but it just looks so neat. It's like I'm bouncing across enemies across this chasm.
Yeah, and African Mines is also the easiest stage in the run. The boss fight had some slight optimization, because if you delay your hits as much as possible, that will cancel part of the animation of his when he starts rolling, and that will save a few frames that are important in a game like this, which is very optimized so far. The world record is 7:08 by Andy, and I think it could be pushed lower, but that would be an insane grind.
Yeah, it would, and that's for difficult, right? 7:08, because I know easy's not quite as fast, even though it could be, but it hasn't been pushed as hard. I think it's set to easy time is a 7:10, but
yeah, but there are
7:15 is still a push either way.
Yeah, but there are no differences between the two routes. It's just safer to play on. You can just get more hit, but the game is the same. DuckTales 2 is different, because you can get damage boost in a boss fight that makes it easier on easy. So easy is the main category because it's faster.
Weird how that works out. Fascinating nonetheless. But that differs amongst games. You have games like Gorilla War move faster, and which is weird, but that's not here or today or at all. We got enemy coming up to the snowman that JKL just finished off. Now this is going to be the last stage for enemy before the final gauntlet with Dracula Duck, but JKL actually still has one more stage to go through in the moon. We'll see if he's able to land the skip and finish the stage quickly. Perfect moon is something like 40 seconds, 45 seconds, right? I want to say.
Yes.
It definitely doesn't take long.
Perfect moon, yeah. You will a perfect moon you will see the time, the in-game timer at 560 from 561 to 563. That's the best. A good moon is something like that. But JKL is doing it
very, very safe way.
Yeah, he will just position himself on the green wall and let the guy push him down.
In a marathon, that's how I do it too. I can do moonskip fairly consistently, but it's also not the kind of thing I see.
Yeah, you have no idea how nervous I was during the GDQ for that skip. If you watch the screen, you will see me doing something like "ooh" when I pass it.
I can only imagine. I just remember being so focused on that race. Also, speaking of focus, enemies. I don't think anyone saw it because it stopped now. But for his Dracula duck fight, the bottom of the screen was horizontally moving, and it's doing it again. Anyway, very, very solid Dracula duck fight there. We're just going to close out DuckTales for him once he climbs the vine and grabs the chest.
Yeah, enemy's run was good. Definitely sub 8.
Very solid.
Oh no, he died once maybe.
Enemy? No, I don't think he died.
No, he died. Definitely sub 8.
Oh yeah, for absolute certain. That'll move him on to Little Mermaid, which probably a game you and I can both talk about here. First thing I learned when I learned this game, I did not know that Ariel had fast movement, and by that I mean it's like Aladdin where you actually have to hold the button to get her to move at the optimal speed. So you're holding B the entire game.
Yeah,
like you never let go of the B button. You have to get the first power-up, which enemy just claimed there. That's also a case of get this and don't lose it ever. It's like Contra. Get spread, don't lose it. With Ariel, it's get single bubble, don't lose it. With his power-up, she goes from having to hit an enemy twice with a bubble to capture it. It's moved to one shot.
Exactly.
So it makes it go much, much faster. Shells, you'll see a little bit of for protection throughout this run, but primarily for boss fights, you're going to see a lot of capture this, and it goes so much faster with only one wave of the tail, which you'll see here on the shark.
The shark boss is the only one that can be manipulated, actually, and if you're always doing the same movements, you will get always him to spawn high when he goes off screen, and you will get all the hits you need very fast. And yeah, one thing in this game is that you, like you said before, you have to keep Ariel moving. Not doing unnecessary movements. Yeah, you just have to go straight if you want to go fast as possible.
And to enunciate, but when he says straight, he does exactly mean straight, because in this game, turnaround animations are really slow. Like, optimally, you don't want to be doing them ever. You only do them when you absolutely have to. Like, for instance, this climb the enemy's doing here, you have to turn to be able to get through those corridors, but that's one of the only times you're going to be doing that. The rest of the time, go right, hold right. There's some interesting movement you can do down here. I think there's a pixel-perfect descent you can do that can take you just all the way down the column, but I've not tested it. I want to say it was Dugong that was messing with that, but I could be wrong. Maybe it's someone else. No, it was someone else. I forgot who it was, though. Well,
Dugong made many research because he wanted the walrus to be manipulated. He really tried to manipulate it, but he couldn't. We didn't find a decent way to manipulate it, so it's just RNG. It's just praying for good RNG, because that boss is really annoying. Speaking of annoying boss, no
kidding. This is my least favorite boss fight in the entire game. I know it's for better times you're going to get more normal versus the seahorse, but the eels they drive me crazy. The crab RNG especially is just the worst. Like, are there actually ways to manipulate their spawn points, like not how they fall, obviously, but like where they fall from? Because you obviously know better than I would, and I have had countless trouble having to deal with that. Because what will happen is they'll fall together, and you capture one, and then as soon as you snag it, it can just collide with another one.
Yeah, you should always. Yeah, the execution in the eel boss must be perfect if you wanna get a good time. It's not just RNG; it's really good execution. I remember Langs grinding the game, and he got so many good eels. His execution with the eels was so good to watch, and
yeah, he pushed it pretty hard. That's for sure. To the point where he only was having problems with fights like the walrus and the seahorse. Anyway, we'll move enemy on to my favorite stage in the game, the Sea of Ice, outside of the boss, of course. I mostly just love the music in this stage. The music is just really serene and cool to listen to, and it has really cool like navigation patterns, especially in that first room. Like, I love how like the ice platforms, you can float just slightly below them and they push you down. And that can create optimal movement. Like, I don't know, I just really like stuff like that. But then I'll move on to the boss. Worst RNG boss in the game by quite a bit. You're at the mercy of this walrus throwing items at you that you can actually use to hit him. Sometimes he throws these frozen blocks of fish, which you can't do anything with, and other times he throws shells, which you can. Sometimes you'll get a pattern of 3 shells, which is great. Sometimes you get a pattern of 1 shell, which is terrible. There he got 2 on the single side when he threw 5, and then he takes forever going to the other side. Is it possible to one-cycle the walrus? I don't think it is.
No, it's not possible because after 2 shells he always goes away.
Hmm.
After you hit him 2 times.
And then, of course, if he throws a 3rd shell, you can just...
I don't think he can throw you a 3rd shell. I'm not sure. I don't remember that, but I'm pretty sure he can. He turns around after 2 hits. Yeah, but if I remember correctly, he cannot throw more than 2 shells. Unless, of course, you miss a hit.
Now we'll move on to, in my opinion, the hardest stage in the game in terms of movement. For me, the movement around volcanoes especially is a little bit obnoxious. There is a pattern to it, and you can learn it, but it's one that I think has the least room for error. Like, you can't really be all that off. Plus, down this corridor where the shrimp can tag you like he just did the enemy there.
Yeah, you can manipulate those shrimps with if you're using a certain route, and he's going safe, of course.
We'll move him onto the boss, which is the seahorse. Now, another fight where you're basically at the mercy of what he gives you. He can throw fish, which you can capture and throw, or he can throw these urchins that you never want to see because they can't be captured at all. They're completely invincible. All they do is hit you.
Yeah, this is another boss that cannot really be manipulated. I messed around a bit with when I was running this on emulator, and I thought the RNG was loaded before you entered the room, but then I found out that if you change your movement during the fight, he will change what he shoots. So there's no really way to predict it. I was desperately trying to find a consistent way of doing that boss, but there is.
So you tried things like if you started at the bottom of the screen when he came in, you would you would hope that he'd throw fish and not urchins, which I get that. That makes sense. JKL is going to move on to the seahorse himself. Much like enemy, also on one hit point here, and that's a really scary place to be in the seahorse fight. Why he's not going for the item, I don't know, but he got it there.
Probably forgot where the item will spawn.
You mean the same place every single time, where it falls down the middle? So here we have enemy on stage 5, up through the mouth. I actually like this strat where you tag the guy coming in. You don't have to; you can just move around it, but it's kind of a tight squeeze, and to me, it's better to just not take the hit. That'll move him on to the first Ursula fight. This one's very similar to the eel fight in that you're kind of having to deal with what she throws at you, but it's not. To me, it's not quite as bad. The enemy clusters can get kind of gross, but with proper execution, you can get a good time every time. It's just one you have to learn.
Because you have so many. You have so many things you can shoot. Apart from from starfish and urchins, you can shoot both the seahorses and the fishes, which there are plenty every time. So
that'll finish off a really clean fight for enemy there. And that'll move him on to the final boss, which is Final Ursula. Another interesting fight. There's a decent amount of RNG to it in terms of how the currents work, but every pattern can be played around.
You can adapt to everything in this fight. You just need to remember how you have to react to every pattern. To
me, it requires what I call spatial awareness. Like, you have to know what's going on at all times to be able to have a fight here.
Yeah, it's just a matter of practice.
She also just has an obscene number of HP. She hits it, like, 7 or 8 times?
7.
It's a decent number. It's another missed hit there. JKL might actually be able to catch up here. He's moving on to the fight as well, and enemy's having a fairly tough time getting these hits, but he finally gets the last hit, and then that'll come on to our 5th game. One of the only non-Capcom games on the list. We have Mickey Mouse Capade. Now, for those that look up and see, Capcom's on the screen. Well, in the U.S., it was released by Capcom. It was actually Hudson Soft. A little bit of trivia there. So, to start, we have Mickey and Minnie, who are going to enter the boss. And this is a major point of contention with the game, and this can also be what allows other racers to be able to catch up for those who are first. So here we have this first room where we're going to get this chest here. Now, keep in mind that chest in the top portion. That'll be important to note, and we'll be back for that later. You're also very likely going to see enemy farm a bit for food. Cake is I believe, the only health item you're going to see in the first level overall, which refills, I believe it's 2 HP. And because of the RNG of the real final boss this level, you actually are going to want to have a decent amount of health in case you end up, getting dumped on by bad luck or whatever. But we'll get to that in a moment. Having picked up the star, you now have offensive capability. You can fire projectiles, which are essentially just like straight moving fireballs. Or as we just call it, the star. Going to take that damage boost right past the cat. That'll move him into the next room here. That's a really bad spawn point for the spider. You don't want him right. And that's another thing that's very prominent in this game. Enemy RNG spawn points is a little bit absurd. You're going to see a lot of, oh, well, this wasn't here. It's here this time. And you just have to play around it. It's primarily not a point for things like the broom or whatever, but when things like the spiders spawn on ladders, that's when things start to get a little gross. So we're going to move on to the actual boss here. Enemy's going to jump to get the key, and you still have to kill the witch before it finishes. Going for the safety there. He went for the behind strat, which sometimes fairly risky, but I like the fact that he jumped there to avoid possibly taking a hit, because the boss will one-shot you if she touches you. You don't want that to happen. So we're going to move on here. And here's where, as I referred earlier, the real final boss comes in. What needs to happen is there's a second chest in this level, this funhouse level, where Minnie is going to be able to try to obtain her portion of offense, which upgrades your weapon from being able to fire 2 shots to being able to fire 3. See what happens here. Enemy gets it on the first try, which is extremely lucky, because I've seen cases of as many as I think I've had 8 times in a row where I missed it. And there's really nothing that determines that that's been able to be discovered. I haven't seen like any frame rule prognosis that's been thrown that way, or predictions or anything like that. It's just, well, do it and hope for the best. But as you see there, upon claiming the chest, what you do then is you allow the spiders to kill you so that you can death warp down to the screen below, which allows for easier exit of the level because you have to work your way back to the beginning, and that'll clear it out for enemy there. And as you can see, JKL just took a death warp himself, so he's going to finish out that level here momentarily. Enemy's going to move on here to the ocean. Pretty straightforward stage outside of the boss. The enemies don't really have any discernible random patterns. The other thing to note, for every 8 enemies you kill in a room, you get a full health up. It doesn't just give it to you, it just spawns them, so you have to go and claim it. The real issue in this stage to me are the waves, because not only do they have a large hitbox, but they hit for a whopping 3 damage, and I tend to tank through those quite a bit when I'm playing this game. Gets a little old, but it's just part of the run. If you can get a full health up, though, you're jumping. And then I'll move him on to the boss, otherwise known as JJ the Crocodile, because very reminiscent of JJ from Contra. He just tends to want to jump around a lot. The best fights against him are the ones where he just doesn't jump ever. You can play it pretty safe as long as you don't let him touch you. Oh, JKL takes a death from Minnie falling in water. That's not good. Another thing to always keep in mind, Minnie is very much your escort mission. If she falls into anything, you do lose a life, and you have to start back over. It's a guaranteed death, and that's why a lot of people don't care for Minnie in this game. Anyway, back to the woods where we have enemy right now. This room is essentially all about it's all about just navigation, especially the first room, which is fairly simple. You have some enemies who have some really ridiculous behavior, but nothing you can't play around. The same kill 8 enemies for applies in all rooms here. Moving on to the second room, which is by far the most dangerous room because you have these bears. Bears kill many things. When a bear touches you, you take 8 damage. So the goal with any bear fight is to touch you, because 8 damage is a good 80% of your 80 to 90% of your. And when you leap the wall there, oh, he's running away. What's going to happen here? Ooh, that's unfortunate. He got a really terrible bear pattern. It was very, very sad. What happened was the bear chased him essentially right across the hole, and he couldn't get back to the spawn point where he wanted to be. I'm actually not sure where it's going to go from here. I never had to move right past that through here. So see what happens from here. Probably should just get another loop round and be able to make his way where he needs to. The reason I bring up navigation specifically is because with this stage, what you're doing is you're breaking these trees open to try to make sure you make your way to the next room. Now, there are multiple paths that do branch, but you always want to make sure you're taking the same path every time, and it's not random. It's a straightforward optimized path that you just need to make sure you can follow. Onto the third room, which has a pretty big bevy of enemies, but it is kind of long, and a lot of areas of it are much safer. Like here we have a couple of bears, which really don't cause as many problems, even though the honey cluster still does 3 and touching them still does 8. But you have a lot more room with which to shoot at them because there's not. Oh, and JKL takes a death in the winter room. That's never good. So for here, right past the start sign of the winter stage, we're going to enter the last room, which is the spring stage. Now, something I've discussed in the past with Rexon, I don't know if anything's been discovered since, Rexon being the world record holder in this game, there is an invincibility item. I think it's supposed to be Tinkerbell in Disney lore. I actually really don't know. But she basically works like a star in Mario. She turns invincible. And if you're able to obtain it, you're allowed to one-shot the boss because it lasts just long enough for you to get to the boss room. Very optimal thing to be able to do. But it looks like enemy didn't get it there, so he'll have to fight the boss straight up. Probably the hardest boss fight in the game. We have the snake, who throws these rings that can do damage to you, which isn't so bad. But he also has a pattern where he can just straight charge you, and you can't do anything about it. And of course, as any boss fight in this game, if he touches you, you're dead. But enemy had a pretty clean fight there. JKL is going to move on to that as well, and enemy's going to move on to the pirate ship. Very short stage, but also probably the most dangerous. Biggest thing to keep in mind, those little pink guys running around, the tiny ones, they hit you for 4 damage apiece, and they're incredibly fast. So the primary goal is to not make sure they don't touch you at all. These blue guys throwing stuff at you also have boss stats, so if they touch you, they kill you. So there's no point getting too close to them either. Now it's going to be interesting to see if enemy goes for mini tank strat here, which he is. It's understandable. It's it's the safest strat in the entire game. You can have mini solo Pete here. It takes longer. But in the context of a race like this, it makes it much safer because you just get to hit him as much as you want and he can't touch you. You just want to do it very, very quickly because you're only getting 1 rate of fire as opposed to 3.
Yeah, not really a gentleman behavior.
No, not even the slightest. But hey, she can tank, she can tank.
I was supposed. Sorry to interrupt. I was supposed to stay with you with the NES blocks, but the late start really messed things up. So I'm about to leave, and I wanted just to say thanks for having me here and say goodbye to everyone and good luck to the racers. So
I owe you all the thanks as well, Garrett. So do we. You did a great job. It's always great hearing your knowledge on the games, especially the games that you have spent so much time with, like Chip and Dale and DuckTales. So we really appreciate having you here, and thanks so much for being the partner today. You did an awesome job, and it was a pleasure having you.
I believe Kavok is going to join probably. So say good luck again and goodbye. Hi.
Not a problem at all. Thanks so much again, Garrett. So anyway, back to the mousecapades, which is not plural. Enemy makes his way to the key, and that's going to push him on back through. Now, a couple of things to keep in mind for this particular level. Enemy placement in every room is random, which is unfortunate. There's also no way to get full health ups because there's no way to kill 8 enemies in a single room. I think the most you can spawn in a room is 4 or 5. So what you're going to see a lot of is trying to hit the windows for Cake to try to make sure you have enough health to get a damage boost that's coming up here very soon. We'll get to here in a moment. Point of order, I really, really hate those red flying guys because they fly in the diagonal patterns and they can just really mess up your day. And enemy's taking a lot of damage here, and I should be able to see if he can make it past this fight. He's going to go into it with 3 health. I don't know if I like that. Oh, okay, all right. Only did 2 health, or did 2 damage. That was good. Takes the intentional death in the room before the door that leads to the boss. Unfortunate for Glitchless there, taking the damage on the death on the bear. So I'll push him onto the door. Damage boost through to get to the door. Move on to the final boss, Maleficent, who has a very, very simple pattern. You're going to push through to the other side. Fire away. She can't hit you if you're behind her, so that just makes it a free fight all the way. That'll close out Mousecapade for enemy. He'll move on to Darkwing Duck. where we're definitely going to get dangerous here. And I'll be honest, I've only played through this game once, so there really isn't a lot that I'm going to be able to offer in terms of knowledge of this game. I think some of the speedrun strats are really cool, but I haven't messed with them too much. Biggest contractor I had is the fact that collision detection is a bit wonky in this game because you have to be able to cling to items to be able to jump across and maintain your balance. Missing those is never where you want to be.
The other big consideration is that you can't move forward and shoot at the same time, which I found annoying, but it's important for speed to... Well, you can shoot in the air and move forward, but you can't do it on the ground.
Well, it's the only way you can keep offense is with jumping, and I noticed the same thing, because this has been considered to be a Mega Man clone. Because of that exact point you just made, I thought, nope, not even agreeing with that at all. The fact that you can't fire while moving is like, no, that's not Mega Man at all. Not in the slightest. Some similarities, yes. A clone, not on the best day. So here we have these jumps here across these items, and being even a couple pixels off from those can result in death, because you want to make sure that you're clinging to it like really, really hard. They don't have a very large collision detection box. Maybe that's just me and the fact that I'm really bad at games like this, but Kavik may have had better results when he messed with it. I don't know.
I've not really put much time in the game, unfortunately. It's a really cool game. I know it's hard and pretty well optimized at this point, so it's not one of the games that I really look at.
That's fair. The movement is not something I'm super familiar with overall, but the boss fights tend to go really, really fun to watch, especially from like a speedrun perspective, which we'll be approaching those here in just a couple moments. There's a lot of this particular trope in these boss fights too. What you'll do is they separate boss fights into multiple platforms. Like we hear this section, this section, this section. Generally it's 3, sometimes it's 2, it could be 2 or 4. But if you land on the ground where the boss is, say if he's on the bottom section, they immediately jump up to the top section because the game determines, like, oh, you're there, I need to move here. But if you hang there and shoot him instead, then that's not going to happen because you never landed. That'll move enemy on to stage 2. Looks like he's going to the sewer, and I don't know too much about this particular stage, except the fact that it is supposed to start the speed run because it has like the worst RNG associated with it. So it's one of those cases where, well, if we're gonna do this, you must away, because if things go bad, then we can just reset. In races, you're probably just gonna see players just go through stages, because this game doesn't have a case of I need this item to go here like Mega Man does. You know, you don't have to go for like item 1 or magnet beam as soon as possible. You don't acquire items in stage. You just get what you get and you move. And I believe weapon upgrades are consistent per stage, and I think they all reset at the end of any given stage. Do they not? Actually didn't study too far into that.
Well, you definitely do need some pickups to do boss fights better, and probably in certain... There is a definite order that they pick in order to get those weapons, I believe.
Well, like I know, for example, the arrow is by far the best weapon in the game. It not only does really, really good damage against some pretty bosses, but it also allows you to create more platforms. This is the section I had the most trouble with casually in this stage. This little navigation here the enemy is working on is just crazy. Of course, I didn't know anything about optimized movement through here, so I'm just like, I'm just going to figure this out as I go. Nice damage boost there.
That last drop is pretty tricky, so he opted to just damage boost through it.
That's completely understandable. Wonder if he's going to go for the health boost here. Nice arrow shots there. Again, arrow does great damage. Gets the health pick up for safety. Completely agree with that. So move him on to the boss. One of the few bosses that doesn't have too much platform associated with it. But it's also a fairly easy boss. All he does is just tends to call up the fish, and you can just... He gives you plenty of time to be able to dodge them. The only annoying part is he's invincible. While he's in puddle form like that, he's completely invincible, so you have to wait for him to spawn. Don't know if that's manipulatable or random, but clears the boss out nonetheless in a great fight.
JKL, or Cats, and Too Good, actually. We switched out from JKL, sorry. Are not too far behind.
And they're working their way through the sewer here. Katz is moving on to the boss herself, see if she has as good of a fight. I don't actually know how much RNG is associated with the stages from here, so I don't know what the chances are that Katz could have a very, very good fight for her there. I don't know what the likelihood is of her being able to catch up to enemy in this game from this point. In Adventures of Magic Kingdom, that's all going to change. There's a ton of randomness in that game, but for this game, I don't quite know quite as much regarding that.
The stage enemy is on has some particularly tight jumps, especially at the beginning, even though we cleared it really well, where Katz might have been able to catch up. There's still tricky stuff coming up. He could easily take a death, and this could definitely change. And it's looking pretty rough for him right there.
Yeah, like there, that was a pretty bad section. Missed the tire, missed the jump off the tire. Now Katz looks to be in the driver's seat here.
Lands on that banana, puts you in a dizzy animation, which is really annoying.
I forget, you're not invincible to that, are you? Isn't the point of those is to make sure that you can get hit? Like when you're in
yeah, you're not invincible while you're dizzy.
Yeah, it depends on. I mean, that of course depends on the game, but I figure in this game it's the case. Like in Chippendale, if you're stunned, you are invincible. So I didn't think that carried over to this game, but like I said, I hadn't played it enough really to mess around with it. Moving. This is actually one of my favorite sections in the run. The upcoming section of jumps I thought was kind of fun to do. The only annoying part is these guys are jerks. You can jump them, of course. It's just a really tight jump because their hitbox is pretty wide. Like you want to be super close to them. It's like pardon the pun, dangerously close jump because you want to be right next to them before you take the leap. Those enemies are kind of obnoxious. You have to make sure you plink A to B, as in like press A immediately into B to make sure you hit them because their only weak spot is their head. Nice damage boost past the turtle there. And Katz has already moved on to the following stage. Looks like she's gonna. I also didn't know about this when I was playing. When you're holding up and he's in cape form, you're invincible. Like you're essentially just blocking whatever they do. Really wish I had known that.
Yeah, it's very useful at times.
Missed that on that one for sure. We see Anthole taking a game over in Mousecapade, so guess we're gonna see what happens to him from here. If he's gonna stick around or what's gonna happen. But back to
a good fight.
Oh, actually, okay. So I missed this. Katz actually is now on the stage that enemy started with, so she may not be in the lead quite as much as I thought. That'll wrap the first 3 stages for enemy, and we'll see where that leaves Katz. No, sorry, Katz. Too good. My apologies. Get my names mixed up here. Okay, so we do have Too Good.
The boss, the enemy just beat. I'm not sure where Too Good is going next.
It's one of the first 3 stages.
Yeah, it looks like he had to come back into this stage. Maybe had a bad time of it before. So he's on the same stage that Katz is just now finishing. Enemy with a decided lead at this point.
Yeah, he's already on the second subset of stages. This stage I had a ton of trouble with my first playthrough. The plants that shoot themselves out from the vines, I believe, if I remember correctly, have really high health, not invincible while they're on the vines, but if you approach too close or wait too long, they shoot themselves off from the vines, and they're basically going to hit you the majority of the time because of how big their hitbox is. And we'll see some more of those here in a moment. Moving the platforms down.
Now that we have JKL on the screen, we actually see that he is even ahead of enemy, it would seem.
Oh, wow. It looks like he was able to make a decent comeback from DuckTales. That DuckTales run was particularly rough for him, and they look like Mousecapade and help him catch back up, but it looks like he's made more than enough of his time back.
Good boss fight there for him.
Yeah, very much so. Arrow is huge there. Another boss I had quite a bit of trouble with when I initially played it. Enemy move on to the same.
As you can see, you can stop the arrows and drop them. He's trying to hit, I forget the name of this boss.
I actually never watched the show, so I'm not gonna be able to help you with that. My Disney afternoon stopped after Chippendale was canceled, so. I missed out on like all that stuff. Real talk. How many enemies in games do we basketball offense? Because we're seeing it now. We can see here on JKL's screen. Slight one.
What are they supposed to be? Kangaroos or something?
I believe so. Kangaroos, wallabies.
In Chippendale, the kangaroos play tennis instead.
Sports playing kangaroos. Film at 11 here on the Disney Afternoon Collection. Oh, bad miss jump there for JK. Looks like he made it out. Oh, nice playing. And that's another big reason why the arrow is the best weapon in the game. It reminds me a lot of. I mean, of course, it's like Super and Mega Man 5. Also reminds me of Sypha in Castlevania 3. Just a character that can make her own platforms. Quite the way to be broken in games like this. You have JKL move here, this section on the way to the boss. This section I had quite a bit of my work cut out for me. The jumps coming up I remember having a particular amount of trouble with. These turtles are pretty easy to avoid if you just pretend they're not even there. But of course, here being the filthy casual that I am with games like this, you had the upcoming health pickup, and of course, like I want that, but not knowing that the arrow was the only way to get there, I decided to make the jump around and be like, well, can't make that because you can't come back if you're just doing standard jumps.
Yeah.
Either way.
JK opts to grab that health pickup.
Probably the smart choice. This boss catch rate is incredibly frustrating, but after watching the speedrun strat, I understand exactly why he's not, because the arrow just makes super quick work of him. All you have to do is destroy the machine's work one time, and then he's just going to be finished off with the arrow just like that. That'll clear out that stage for JKL, who will move to stage 6. Which is the thing about this game is, very similarly to Mega Man, you have 3 subsets of stages. The first subset is 3 stages you can play in whatever order. Second is same, stages 4 through 6. Doesn't matter the order. And the last one, you can only play stage 7 as itself. So this will be the last of the second subset here for JKL to finish up. I gotta say, this is actually my first time watching any actual speed strats in this game. Definitely very cool compared to the casual play. Because the casual play, despite the fact it's a neat game, is incredibly. This game really doesn't. It doesn't pull punches with the player. That's for sure.
Enemy finally getting that boss kill. The electric dude, whatever his name is.
Didn't watch. Beats me. Will not know. Jack can fill us in on that one, I'm sure.
JKL getting all the health drops when he doesn't even really need them. That's frustrating.
Safety first, except not really. If you're going for full health while you're at full, that's just kind of greedy.
Well, he's not going out of his way. He's just getting those lucky drops when it's not a great time for it. He'd prefer to get them when it's clutch.
Because it creates lag on the screen, right? Like just having more spawns on the screen is. It's like how it is in Mega Man, but with Mega Man it's even worse because those eat frames to refill your health. And that can go for any Mega Man game. Nice arrow trickery there. Got the health pickup. What exactly is the G pickup here? Is that just extra ammo? Is that how that works?
Yeah, it's extra gas.
Gas. Get your fuel. Now, I'm guessing dropping the arrow is actually an extra, right? Like you just press the B button again when you use it?
I don't know the exact inputs.
Fair. Reaching out for knowledge here. Because I've already showcased how little I do know. Nice arrow use there from Too Good. Too Good is quite the noted fan of this game. He does enjoy Darkwing Duck. All the more reason for him to be able to step up today for the DIScathlon. This is going to move JKL onto the last stage, which is, to me, more notable just for being long than anything. It's actually really straightforward. There's some cool tricks you can do with the arrow. Like there are some skips that you're going to see. One, I believe, is actually coming up here. Oh, no, he's just going to damage boost it right through. Okay. I believe one other strat is you can go up top and use the arrow to leap that section and just be able to make your way through. But I guess it is faster to just damage boost your way on down or through. Nice. Use the arrow to actually just drop it on the guy when he's coming in. Those guys are particularly annoying as they have really high defense stats. See how this goes here for the platform. Nice. Good timing there. I'm actually curious to see what kind of strats we're going to see through here. It looks straightforward. So, and he took. Is that a death warp?
No, it's just an intentional death to. Well, I mean, it's kind of a death warp because you go to the left side of the screen, but it's just to refill his health right there.
That's fair.
You don't get that much, if any, time saved by the movement to the left of the death.
So it's no different than the one in Mickey Mousecapade where you use it right before the final boss. Because if you need a health refill, it's like the best place to take one. So that makes more sense. Oof, takes the damage boost there. Though I believe there is a one last health up before you reach the boss. So this one's a little tricky. This guy actually jumps at you if you aren't careful enough. Nice one there. Yep, there it is, the one last health up. Jump it on up. Man, if only this game had Ninja Gaiden style jump boosts, or damage boost, rather. Nice use of the arrow there. Now, for this boss, there's actually a pretty simple quick kill associated with him where you just hang on the left and destroy the window. Grab the health if you need it, which is probably going to end up being the case anyway, because, you know, he just took some damage there just from just fast movement in general. And essentially all you have to do from here is keep him on the ground and trying to kill you while you're active the one and end up doing more damage to him. JKL is going to clear it out there, and he's going to move on to Adventures in Magic Kingdom. Yeah, it was a good fight for sure. Is this a game you've messed with at all, Kavik?
I'll try. I played it a lot as a kid, but never really got anywhere with it. Definitely not as a speedrun.
It's not one I investigated too much as a run outside of the actual route. But there is, of course, a lot of RNG associated that you have these questions that you have to answer. The premise of this game is you have 5 mini games and 1 quiz mini game to go along with it. The quiz mini game just basically involves asking people questions that you'll get to around the park, and it's basically like a wild goose chase. We're like, oh well, they're here or they're here. You know, the RNG is that the questions you get are random or selected from a seed of questions, and you have to be able to make sure you can answer them correctly. Whenever you get a question, it's never going to change the answer. It's always going to have the same answer, but you have to be prepared for the actual question. And I'm sure anything that involves an A answer is the optimal because it involves the least inputs. For the first stage,
and Space Mountain right now, where it's basically just a series of QuickTime events.
And most of them are actually predetermined. As it turns out, most of the directions, I believe, are predetermined, whereas the items you have to shoot are actually not. There is color association. If you get one of the gray ships, it's a B press, so you can tell that just by visual cues before you even see what the button is. If you get a planet that's either blue or red, that's an A button press. But from here, most of what you're going to see is just, you know, you're down, you're up, you're right, you're left. You're also going to see what looks like a wiggle input, which it turns out exactly what it is. It's a left to right fast alternating pattern, and they use that to you just wiggle left and right, which I imagine makes run. Oh, unfortunately, there for Too Good. He took a death in the last room on Darkwing Duck. The goal of the Space Mountain minigame is to get to Zone F through this series of QuickTime events. There you saw the little wiggle input I was referring to. Played enough, these inputs are going to look the same every time. It is a lot of them. I haven't studied how many it is exactly, but I only finished it once and kind of just moved on from there instead of deciding to continue practicing it. But remember, everything's going to start looking about the same. It also moves much faster as you move to zones. By the time you get to Zone E, your reaction time will be a bit quicker because the amount of time you have to do the inputs is quite a bit shorter than it would have been previously. I believe it's going to move JKL onto the finish. He's on E right now. I believe as soon as you reach zone F, it just ends. You don't have to play more through F. I think E is the actual last that you have to do. Bobbing and weaving. We'll see if enemy does a good job being able to get through this. The only real goal of Space Mountain is just don't lose. Like, if you take 3 hits, you have to start back over. That costs a ton of time.
So JKL gets his key. Cats moves on to Adventures in the Magic Kingdom. Two Good's not too far behind. Finishes up.
Yep.
Steelbeak, I believe, is the name of that boss.
He actually just wrapped up Darkwing Duck, so he's moving to Adventures right now. JKL, the furthest ahead, getting ready to start the race. This race is pretty unusual. The control scheme of it it's definitely not Mario Kart. you have acceleration, but there are some key points where you actually have to wait out parts of the race in order for it to be able to finish, and you kind of have to, play by the game's rules, which, while not fun, is just something that has to be done sometimes. We'll see one of those coming up here in a moment where you have to wait for a bridge to finish constructing before you can actually cross it. Why the bridge wasn't ready in time for the race, we'll never know. But
in general, it's not a terribly difficult event, aside from the gotcha moments with waiting for the bridge. One of the big things, though, they might be trying to get is getting a lot of those stars for safety, essentially. You can spend stars on power-ups or extra life later on, and other stages that are actually more difficult. You can spend it on invincibility and some other things as well.
We'll definitely be seeing that, certainly in the Haunted Castle. I don't actually recall if it comes up Pirate stage, but in Haunted Castle you definitely get that. But looks like JKL is going to finish up the race and take his second key. A little bit more top-down action here. He's going to go talk to this person. Also, Fauntleroy %. We got Fauntleroy %. Oh, and he missed it! Oh my goodness, JKL. It's been like the biggest meme of DIScathlon. He thought I was Percy. That's unfortunate. Anyway, he'll still be able to answer the question and be able to move.
Too Good apparently has to clean his cart between games.
That's unfortunate.
A little bit of a lack of planning there, apparently.
I think he was a late entrant for this event, which props to him. He's done significantly well with the games he's had, but
well, he just has tons of experience and is really good at all these games in general. It seemed like a no-brainer for him to join.
True, he's a seasoned DuckTales player, and he's really good at it and very much enjoys it. Rest, not too familiar with him on, but he seems to enjoy just classic Capcom in general. So, and this is 70% Capcom would have been, I think. So. No reason not to. Looks like JKL's moving on to Pirate Stage here. This stage to me was kind of irritating. It's 3 hits to death, which means it's not quite as bad. There's also, I don't believe, too many pratfalls that you can take, like falls that actually just kill you. The goal here is you have 6 maidens that you have to rescue, and they're not randomized. They're always all on the same points. I think you only get 1, maybe 2 in the first room. Move on. That being said, in these stages, you definitely can't afford to die because there's no checkpoints. It just starts you right back at the beginning of the stage on the map. Good use of invincibility there. That ladder clip is actually kind of tricky. And the ladder that goes in, it's kind of irritating at times. Move on and rescue another maiden. More good use of invincibility here, as Kavik was talking about in regards to the stars. This is where it becomes important. In these stages here, you can spend it on turning your character invincible, and you basically just get to ignore enemies for a short amount. We'll see it more so in Haunted Castle when we get to use it on the boss. From here, all he's going to have to do is rescue the last of the maidens. And once that's completed, he gets to walk to the right to... I know there's a plot element to it, which is kind of unusual. I think it's right here. Yeah, he's going to light the fire to send out the flare, and that'll alert him to safety, and that's going to clean that up. So another silver key he's got there. He's going to move on to the Haunted Castle, which is, to me, probably the hardest stage in the thing. There's so much that can go wrong here. First of all, this first room with the boss, he can't touch you. He moves in the same pattern every time, but he does slow your progress. And to my knowledge, there's no way to really get around him. You have to just kind of let him mosey and do what he wants to do. Because, as I mentioned, if he does touch you, that is one shot and you die, and you have to start back at the beginning. So here we're going to push for even more stars, because we'll need the invincibility. The
character's jump is really quick too, and you don't get a lot of vertical distance while it's out there, so it makes some of this platforming pretty tricky.
Yeah, and coupled with the fact that you won't, I don't think you'll see it in this next room, but in the next to last room where you're making your way through the library, some of the platforms actually have hitboxes, and they will knock you off, and you can actually take a death just by falling off a cliff. So this section could also be a pretty big determination of who comes out ahead in the race. Lots of weird platforming here, just moving platforms. Got to play by their rules. No real ways to bypass it. I do love how this part of the game looks, though. The rainfall in the background windows looks really neat. And now we're past that because we don't get to see it again. And enemy took a death.
Yeah, 2 quick deaths there. Pretty unfortunate, but he's right back in it.
That's how this stage be. Now, this Castlevania room, just because it compared so much to Symphony of the Night, the books can really ruin your day. They basically only have to touch you once because the knockback in this game is so huge that if they do touch you, you are going to fall. Like, they don't even fight you. You don't even take damage. You're just going to just not get knocked off into your death because there's no floor.
JKL buys himself some invincibility there,
which he will be using here for the boss fight for sure. The boss makes his return. He can't one-shot you now, but you want to turn on the invincibility so you can make sure that you can get in as much damage as you can before he can start to get around you. JKL did exactly that, and that'll move him on to what I believe is the last actual minigame, which is the train. And he got the actual best RNG by getting to go to the 4th station. The controls to keep in mind here are that you do have a break, and you do have to use it. If you get hit, I think it's 3 times, you end up taking a death and having to start up. But you can damage boost through the gates, but the things you don't want to get hit by are the boulders. Boulders have some pretty odd patterns. But the upside of having the 4th station and why it's the best RNG is the control for it is exactly the same. You don't really have to be mindful of where you're going. You can just hold right the entire time. Oh, okay, so he took 3 hits and still, so it actually is. That'll pull him put him closer to the 4th station. He's almost there. What essentially the goal is reach the end of the goal in the minecart level, and you get the key. Here, though, any other station aside from the 4th one, you just get twists and turns, and you kind of have to make guesses. You can predetermine what they are first. There's no randomness to it. It's just that doing it blind is kind of rough. You also can't spawn a new seed. Like, if you get, like, the 1st station and it ends up, you end up dying, it comes back and it's still going to be the 1st station. Like, that's locked as soon as you turn the game on, I think. Or maybe it's some undetermined point when you press start, I don't know. I'm sure there's a frame to it. Exactly. JKL is going to wrap up to the train station.
Yeah, and he's just trying to chase down the dog at this point.
Yep, and he's got his 6th key. That'll move him to the castle, and that'll finish up his NES portion. There's going to be a quick mandatory 90-second delay for him to be able to swap over to the other console. The Super NES from here is going to start the last 3 games of it, which are by far the longest games of this particular race. You got Magical Quest, Aladdin, and Kavic's favorite non-Capcom game in the Lion King. But we don't need to talk about that.
Yeah, I'll complain about it when we get there.
A second.
Enemy is having a lot of trouble with the Haunted Mountain, or Mansion even. Right now, he's taking a lot of deaths here. Takes another death from a book there, falling into the nothingness, I guess.
Yeah, having a bit of a struggle there for sure.
Too good, chasing down some questions. Does he know the answers?
He's gotta take the test, man. Gotta study up. That'll move him. He's gonna go to the train. No, he's gonna just get as many questions answered. Cat seems to be working her way through the pirate stage and takes a fall.
Into the pit.
Yeah, that's never where you want to be. Enemy's gonna move on to the pirate stage himself. Since this game is pretty open world, it's hard to actually tell who's ahead. I actually don't know if there's an optimal route aside from starting with Space Mountain first, just because it's in the corner of the map and you can work your way out from Space Mountain to literally anywhere.
JKL did a really good job of taking the questions, positioning them basically right next to the events he was doing. That might have saved him time. I'm not sure if it's a huge amount or just a little bit.
I'm sure it's a significant amount, maybe not a huge amount, but we'll see. Anyway, it moves him on to
So as you can see in Magical Quest, he has started. Every time you take a hit as Mickey, you lose a ton of time. Because he has to go through this long animation and shake it off, and it's pretty annoying.
Yeah, this I personally think this game is really good in terms of the kind of mechanics that it offers, but it definitely does have its flaws. It's very pretty to look at, though. Like for early Disney Capcom in the 16-bit era, this game is quite pretty to look at for sure.
It does look good in general. I feel like Mickey's sprite is kind of oddly goofy. Not on goofy, but just it looks sort of weird and odd to me for some reason. But the majority of the game is very pretty.
Yeah, it really is, for sure.
Enemy's going back to the Haunted Mansion, wants another shot at this. He went elsewhere to try and shake off his frustration. And possibly to try and collect some of those stars that we were talking about that you can spend on. He might want to have an invincibility for the furniture ride. Cat's answering some trivia.
Get your questions in.
And going straight to that castle. So she'll finish up, do her 90-second wait, and move on to Magical Quest.
All the pink. Seen this menu quite a few times. It's like, oh god, it's so bright.
JKL fighting these Pete-themed monsters, I guess. That one might not be the most Pete-themed. I think in general they're supposed to have Pete's face. Throwing its own body at its face. That is an insult.
How dare you?
Enemy is definitely struggling on the Haunted Mansion here. As we said, it's probably one of the most frustrating stages in the game.
Well, that's just because it's so punishing.
And it's very long compared to even the others. Yeah, one single hit when you're riding on the furniture, you're just falling into the nothingness. As you can see, JKL picks up his first costume, so now he can shoot magic at things, I guess.
It works kind of like a charge shot in Mega Man, but it actually does have a meter to it. Like, you can't actually drain the meter. You can, of course, refill it by getting those magic lamps, but it's something to keep in mind for, like, if you're going to do a boss fight, you may only have a specific amount of shots that you can do. Looks like we're also getting ready to invite the world record holder for this game, Hulk, here into our commentary channel. Aha, there we go.
Okay, finally. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, sorry about the confusion. We ran into some difficulty there and getting that coordinated, but looks like we're in now. Now, just so Kavik and I can stop talking about it, let's hear from someone who knows a lot more about this game than either of us combined. So, Hulk, where are we at with this game? What are we doing here passing the second stage of what JKL is working on here at the moment?
Okay, so this is a game where actually you don't have a run button. It's not like Aladdin or some other games. So if you try to go fast in this game, what you want to do is to use slopes. You see that JKL just used a slope that made him run a little bit faster forwards. And what you want to do is to try to jump as much as possible to retain that speed, because it goes away very quickly. So that's one of the major speed strategies in this game.
So jumping maintains your momentum, like, and you don't actually drop. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. It's all about
cool.
Yeah, it's all about maintaining and keeping momentum.
Second death for JKL there, and I actually believe that's going to be a game over. Yeah, that's very unfortunate for him. Going to lose some time.
Fortunately, in this game, even if you game over like he does, you still start again at the same level. So you just lose a few seconds because of the game over screen itself, and you have to go back to the map screen as well. But you get to start again in the same level. So it's not that punishing. You know, I'm pretty confident that all players will be able to beat the game fast enough. It should not be a big roadblock.
It's definitely not that difficult of a game. Some of the boss fights are a bit annoying, for sure. I actually thought the bird fight was pretty rough until I discovered the quick kill, and I was like, oh, suddenly this fight's not a problem anymore.
Yeah, in this game, you get costumes. The first one you get is the magician one, and that's probably the most broken one when it comes to combating, to fighting.
Damage output of charge shots is just disgusting. Yeah. Like, it does so much damage.
Yeah, if you want to go to specifics, you can do up to 16 damage if you do a fully charged shot, and I think there's nothing else in the game that does that much damage. So it's probably going to be your biggest source of damage for bosses.
And because you get a lot less damage out of, say, the firefighter, which we'll see later. I don't know how much damage the water does.
It does very little. I think it does 1 per water sprite, so it's really not a lot. But still, you want to use that to fight the fire boss, because he's only vulnerable to water. But all the other bosses will be fought with magic, because that's better.
Absolutely. Work your way through, I believe, the only underwater stage, because he has to magically create himself a bubble to be able to breathe.
Yeah, there's also water in other stages, but this is the only one where we actually will go into water, because we don't have a choice. Water is so all over his. Yeah, it turns out the magician's costume is also the same one which enables you to breathe underwater.
Fancy that. Hate to mess with that outfit, though. Kidding. That's going to move JKL on to the last portion of Stage 2. This stage, for me, as a kid, was actually my gatekeeper. Like, some of the treetop platforming, we didn't get along, to say the least. It's not, I don't know if it's so much that it's tricky, but it definitely doesn't favor those who are patient, which makes me wonder how people can even speedrun this game.
Yeah,
now of course I know better, but...
Yeah, this level that JKL is doing right now is not easy to optimize, because you want to keep your speed and also be aligned properly with the cycles of the sticks, of these stumps.
Yeah, and your jump boosts off those do require a bit of good execution, for sure. This is going to move us on to our spider boss. Never was a fan of this boss fight. I believe he only has two weak spots or just one? I know you can hit him in the face.
It's just one weak spot. You have to hit his head. You can hit him with magic, which is probably the best option, or you can also jump on it. But on easy mode, he has little health. It's little enough so that you can just chain him to death, just like JKL did.
just like right there, yeah. Just got his
Unfortunately,
face and just pointed the finger at him.
Yeah, if you're playing on a higher difficulty, though, you will not be able to finish him off like that. You will have to finish him off with jumping, because you will run out of magic, and then you have to do the last hits with jumping. But on easy mode, fortunately, you can just mash him to death. And that's easy enough to do.
Of course. Here we have one of, I think, maybe the only auto-scroll game. Actually, no, there is another one later that is the Spike Infested. So this will be our first one. This one's...
It's the only one.
Oh, yeah, the other one you actually... It's not an auto. You're actually... That's right.
Yeah, this is the only one.
It looks like an auto-scroll, but it doesn't play like one. That one will be interesting to watch just from the speedrun perspective, because the path for it is, I imagine, pretty precise, but more precise in the fact that you just can't miss it. Because if you miss it, you take a death and you have to do it again. And interesting to see how our racers are able to adapt to that.
Yeah, we'll see what kind of strategies they're going to use. I'm actually curious.
Nice. Clearing out the blocks there.
Yeah, the blocks actually control RNG. So I don't know if JKL is really aware of what the strategies are. I think he destroyed 5 blocks. I think this is good, but maybe he destroyed one more. Yeah, you want to destroy exactly 5 blocks to get a good pattern on the mini-boss he's about to fight. But I think he destroyed more. So he might not be aware of exactly how you're supposed to manipulate the mini-boss. Yeah, he's not getting the proper pattern. But maybe he's getting something he is confident with. So this is actually, it doesn't look too bad. Alright, he beat him in a pretty solid fight.
We'll move us on to our second costume, the firefighter. Now, this one I've noticed is not so much more in terms of combat, because as you pointed out, the damage is not quite as useful, but you do want it to be able to do platform creation, because you'll get sections of wall-like platforms where you can push some of them in, and you have to be able to move your way around them that way.
Yeah, you can push the silver blocks, and that's going to be useful.
Yep, just like there. As you saw there, push it a little closer so you can get a slightly closer one there. You can also use the firefighter outfit to douse those platforms in water to put out the flames, so that way they don't do damage to you. So it's optimal to have this here, as the game wants you to do.
Yeah, you can put out the fire, and you can also stall these moving platforms in order to make the platforming a bit easier for you.
Decent damage boost there, I like that. Now, this section is where things got kind of gross. You have these bigger platforms that you have to be able to move with the water, and
yeah, those cubes. You want to make sure you don't get trapped underneath them, because you will get hit.
Then of course we have this here with the moving fire ceiling, where you're also just entirely susceptible to just take a ton of damage in such a short amount of time.
Yeah,
stay in the water to make it safe.
Yeah, this is one of the only places where you actually want to get hit once. At least that's the optimal strategy. JKL got hit, but he got hit too early. I think he might take another hit just to make it... Oh no, okay, he chooses to be a bit safer. And you can clear this entire moving ceiling just by taking one hit if you go fast enough. You jump constantly out of the water to keep enough momentum.
I believe we'll move him on to the stage 3, which you have to ride the platform to get to the boss. Any optimal boss strats you can discuss with us here for this guy? You gotta circle around him, and you can't remain in one place at all times.
Yeah, for the third boss, you want to start on the right of him, just because of what directions the platforms are going to move. When he takes enough damage, the platforms are going to circle the other way around, and so it's optimal to stay on the right, so that you would be aligned with him, and it would be easier to just jump constantly, and still have the boss in front of you, so you can damage him. And JKL's fight was actually pretty good. It was not optimal, but it was
fast.
Acceptable. Yeah, it was fast.
It was fast enough to be able to get him there. Plus, he still has a fairly commanding lead for this film. So.
Yeah, he's doing well. But Cats on Your Head is pretty close. She's just like 2 levels behind, so that's nice. That's exciting.
So here we have the final costume, which was actually my least favorite. I like the the mobility you get with the, I guess we'll call it the, I don't know, the Ranger, the Peter Pan outfit. I don't know
Yeah,
exactly.
Robin Hood.
But grappling hook mechanics, which are unique to this particular dress sphere, are pretty unusual. You have some fairly wonky collision detection to work with.
Yeah, it takes some getting used to. It's really not obvious, but you can do several useful things with it. Like you can swing around something you can cling on, and that would give you a pretty good boost of speed. So let's see what JKL's route is going to be. Okay, he doesn't seem to go to the bottom route. Bottom route is probably the fastest one because you can just do a lot of swings underneath the level. But if you fail, you die because there's nothing underneath. You will just fall to your death. So yeah, top route is probably the easier option if you're not too confident. There's actually a way to do the top route about as fast as the bottom route, but it's so ridiculously hard that I'm not expecting anyone to try that. Actually, he didn't die, so that's fast. So that's pretty fine. So now JKL is switching back to the magic costume because that's gonna do a lot of damage to the boss.
It's our mode 7 boss here because the flying from the back.
Yeah, when he flies from the back, he generates a lot of wind, which pushes Mickey around. So you have to anticipate where you have to stand in order to not die. You basically have to go where he comes from. That's the idea. Oh, he's almost dead.
He actually already took the death, so he's going to move on to his second attack.
Yeah.
This is still a fairly risky strat to do. It's definitely the optimal strat in terms of being able to get the fastest kill possible, but you also are without the grappling hook. And casually, the strat is to take the grappling hook and just use it to grasp onto 2 platforms you see on the side there, because when you're clinging to those, the wind doesn't affect you, so you just don't die. But
yeah, that's what you're expected to do.
But you got a fairly fast kill there, so that worked out pretty.
Yeah, that was okay. That was actually pretty good.
Second attempt.
Yeah, 2-7 is basically what you want.
And that moves them on to, I believe, the final stage, is it not? Or is there a stage 5?
No, there's a stage 6. This is going to be stage 5, the ice stage, but there's the Pete's Castle.
Forgot about the ice stage. The Ghouls and Ghosts stage, as I call it.
Yeah.
This is essentially stage 5 in Ghouls and Ghosts. It looks so similar. Just all ice physics. I'd forgotten about this stage.
Yeah, kind of. Kind of looks like it, I suppose. So yeah, what JKL is doing is taking advantage of those ice cubes because they are a little bit faster than the fastest speed you can get by yourself. So you want to use those ice cubes.
Yeah,
however, if you stay on them too long, though, your Mickey's speed is going to fade away. So in the next level, there's going to be some ice cubes that you don't want to get on. It's not easy to really optimize.
Are you also using those stems as stopgaps quite a bit? Like I saw JKL do one there. I don't know if that's necessary to do that kind of thing. Or...
no, you can just jump off the ice cubes. You actually don't want to get hit by those flower thingies.
So it's optimal to just not do it and pretend then just play around them. Okay. Here we have the Tony Hawk boss, who just gets to skate right down the half pipe.
Yeah, fortunately that's the only boss in the game that has no RNG about it. But it's still difficult to optimize. Let's see what JKL is going to do.
Looked like a 2.5 cycle there. That was pretty quick.
Okay.
Pretty decent fight there. That'll move him on to the last level. And I guess that's the biggest upside of the 5th stage is the fact that it's so short. You only have, 2 rooms in a boss fight? Seems simple enough. Then we'll move on to the last portion, which I believe is the longest stage in the game.
Yeah, that's the last level, indeed.
A lot to push through here.
In those levels, there's this is the only levels in the game where you have several endings in a few of these levels, and you want to pick the correct ending, because if you go to the wrong ending, you will have to fight an unnecessary mini-boss fight. So you want to avoid those, of course.
Of course. But of course.
Yeah, keeping speed in the beginning is not easy because you just have a tiny slope to work with. So Yeah, here using the block and hitting the archer is the optimal solution, but you want to not get hit, and that's pretty difficult to do. And you want to use an arrow block at the end, so you can just go to the end. Ah, man, JKL fell in the water. The problem is that there's not much you can do there. You're expected to use the hookshot costume to get out, but dying is probably better if you don't really know what to do from there. And Cats on Your Head is getting closer and closer, also.
Oh yeah, one decent mistake from JKL here.
Yeah.
Could most certainly turn the tide. Something tells me it's probably going to be fairly safe through the rest of this game in particular. Aladdin, however, I haven't seen him practice Aladdin, and I don't need to tell you this, but Aladdin's quite execution intensive, and missing specific jumps can cost you a ton of time because it can result in anything from low health that you have to go out of your way to try to recover, to death, to
Aladdin is a game where, I think it's a game where you can be very, very safe, or you can really ham it and try to nail all the tricks, and then it gets very hard. So you can make it very easy for yourself, or very hard, depends on what type of gamer you are, or what type of racers you want. So I'm really curious to see what these runners are going to try to do in Aladdin.
Yeah, of course.
So by the way, JKL just beat a level with a lot of spikes everywhere, and those spikes kill you in one hit, so you need to use at least one of those flying carpets. Otherwise it's not possible to beat. So here, interesting, JKL uses the fireman costume. The speedrun strategy here is to use those arrow blocks, but that's not easy to do because you want to carry one of those blocks all the way to the top so that you can skip a little portion later. JKL is just going to do all the intended routes and using this block to go to the top floor.
Ta-da!
That's actually fine. It's not optimal, but it's a lot easier, I guess.
Something about pushing the enemies using your stream to actually turn them into a platform makes me happy to see too.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but
Ooh, Cats on Your Head is actually doing something a little bit more complicated. She's using the arrow block and trying to get past the cannon part. It didn't work out too well though. At least she didn't die. She would be able to get to the top. She would have to turn into fireman though. And now JKR is fighting the final boss, which has a lot of RNG, so you have to react to his pattern. Whenever he's doing his magic thing with his hand, he is invincible. You cannot hit him with your magic, so you can only hit him when he's not doing that. At some point he will summon lanterns, and lanterns you can kill them with magic to get more magic, so he will have to make sure that he doesn't run out of magic, otherwise it might be very, very bad. It's still possible to get back some magic. You can turn into the fireman, and you can hit the lanterns and then turn back into magician very quickly, so that the lanterns will drop magic.
Oh,
but
okay.
That's possible, but it wastes a lot of time though.
I actually did not know that through this fight you could refill magic. I mean, I've only fought this final boss once, but it always just gave me fire hydrants, so I thought you could only refill.
Yeah, it will give you, the lanterns will give you items depending on what costume you have, but if you switch costumes very fast, you can trick it into giving you what you want. It's possible, it's just pretty slow, and you don't want to have to do this. Okay, nice. JK actually beat the boss with his last magic shot, because he completely run out of magic. So now JK is on to Aladdin.
Move on to a game that I know you're going to have plenty to discuss.
Yeah, I might be familiar with Aladdin on SNES.
Only slightly.
Slightly, so here you go. So Aladdin, I guess the game does not need too much of an introduction, but this time you have a run button, so you want to keep it down in order to go fast. And the first thing JK is going to do is pick up the cape, so you can float, and Okay, he doesn't seem to do a whole lot of mashing, and he's going down to get the first healing item. It gives you 1 extra heart. So I used to call that the heart of shame, but I won't today because I know that these runners have a lot to go through. So I completely understand the.
Also, not quite as experienced. So yeah.
Yes. Getting safety is a good call. It's definitely a good call. So.
You're going to see that in Lion King as well. I think in Lion King there's 2 health upgrades to the entire game, one of which is basically free, but the other one you kind of have to go get. So you might see some actually get that. I still love the fact that throwing apples there is just a ridiculously great strat because you basically get to turn off enemy hitboxes by doing that.
Yeah, you stun enemies and you can pass through them, and it's really handy for those guards throwing barrels at you because they will not have enough time to throw barrels at you if your apple throw is good enough. So there's a thing that some people seem to not do too much, but yeah, just a little bit. You can mash the cape, and every time you release it, you will save 1 frame basically because you will exploit the animation of Aladdin. Stopping the cape, and that will push you forward by 2 extra pistols. So in a really good speedrun of this game, you want to mash the cape really extensively, and that's quite a masher's game. But yeah, it's not required to get a great time. It's just going to save some frames.
It's also interesting in that it's maybe the only high-level game that matches that particular button, because if you don't change it's in a marathon setting, you're not going to change your buttons all that often because that just costs more time. So a lot of our runners today probably have learned to just mash using R.
Yes, by default the cape is R, and mashing R is not something you do every day, so it's a bit particular. No. You can also set it to the X or the A buttons if you prefer. Some people use X. Like a Joe D'Amelio, the workout holder, uses X, and I use R, so both are actually viable options. It just depends on what people want to do. And JKL is now on the first boss, the salesman. Ah, nice. He actually used the first apple throw, and that stuns him, and you can hit him a little bit faster. It saves about 1/4 second. And after that, what you want to do is you want to throw an apple at the right time so that he stops his animation where he uses the sword like crazy. So he goes back to his first phase more quickly, where he just does 1 sword swing and you can hit him again. So you have to change that 4 times in a row and once. It's pretty difficult to optimize, but they did a good job. Yeah, Cats did not die, JKL did not die, so that's nice. In this game, it's just like Mickey. The game does not give you back your health between worlds, so that might be an issue for Cat in the Head because she only has 1 heart. Let's see how she does.
This stage is. I actually learned this speedrun version of DIScathlon. This particular part of the game was very, very tricky for me. Nailing some of these jumps into ledge clips was quite tiresome for sure. It takes some effort, that's for sure.
Yeah, there are some difficult tricks you can try to do, like using a bat and using a damage boost, so that to avoid having to pull yourself up a ledge, and that saves like half a second, maybe a bit more. But yeah, it's something very tricky to do and risky if you're a beginner. So you might not want to do all the strats if you're not an advanced player of this game.
Speaking of strats, of course you'll know this, but I believe it was 88 taught me that when you're going into the final cutscene of the first room of stage 2, you have to wait for a boo to show up to save time. I never understood why that was.
Yeah, because if you trigger the end of the level too early, Abu is going to try to catch up with you just by walking, and that's slower. So you want to trigger him to trick him into just follow you by running, and that's actually an optimization. If you do it right, you can save a full second compared to just rushing to the end without any strategy.
And of course, you have to move right as he's coming on the screen too to really optimize how many frames you're saving.
Yeah, exactly. It's very strange, but that's how it works. So yeah, as expected, those players are doing it slightly safely because you can skip some of the logs here, but it's really extremely technical.
Yeah, so I don't even understand how that works. I've watched you do it. I'm like, I ain't got. Yeah. Especially the one under the second drawbridge that you have to open, you can just damage boost right through that. I'm like, nope.
Yes, it's very difficult. It was only discovered like a few months ago, so yeah, I wasn't expecting anyone to try that. But what they did is actually pretty good. Still, you just pull the ropes just enough so you can go through go past the stalactites, and that's already good enough.
Yeah, it has to raise just enough to where you can crouch underneath it, which is the trickiest part of it, to make sure that you have platform access to be able to get under it while it's still high enough for you to be able to not take a hit. Speaking of which, speaking of taking hits, it looks like Kat's actually pulling a little bit ahead. She's got about a 3 to 4 second lead on JKL now.
Yeah, because she didn't die, I believe, or maybe she didn't die less. I'm not sure. But yeah, she now has a lead. Yeah, you can see Cat on Your Head has still 2 lives and JKL only 1. So now this is an auto-scroller. So the only thing you can do here, apart from just not dying, is to try to not create too much lag. So the only places where you can create lag here is when there's a lot of fireballs on the screen and you take several jumps in a row. So you want to just avoid doing that, and you will be fine. And also, I can speak about the gems. They actually matter in this game because it's not like Mario. When you get 100 gems, you don't get an extra life, but you get an extra heart and also a free health refill. And that's important because more hearts means not only more safety, but also more damage boost that you will be able to do later on in the game. So it's important to collect as many gems as you can right now. Oh, and by the way, in case you're wondering, the red gems, they are worth 3 gems.
I was wondering. I couldn't remember if it was 3 or 5.
Yeah, it's 3. And at the end of every world, there's a score screen that tallies up all the red gems you got. And actually, getting more red gems does not waste any time at all, because it will always take the exact same amount of time to get past that screen. So you can you can take the reds. Yeah, you can take the reds, and there would be no cost of time at all.
And there's 8 red gems per stage, I believe it is.
Yeah, 10.
Is that right?
It's 10.
10. Okay.
10 per stage, for a total of 70 in the game. So there's also a 100% speedrun which collects all of them. So now Cats on Your Head is on the other autoscroller, the Carpet Escape, which probably destroyed you as a kid if you had this game.
Yeah, but these days it's pretty simple because there's literally no RNG to it. It's just incredibly punishing because 1 hit and you're dead. Like, it doesn't matter how much health you have. You could probably take a hit right at the start of the refill. Of course, it costs you time, but, going into the stage after the lamp, that might matter. I wouldn't recommend it because you don't need to do it, but it's an option. Anyway, that's going to finish it off for JKL there. Remember, I had to teach myself that when it was like down, hard up, hard down. You're done.
Yeah, it's hard as a kid, but eventually you get the hang of it. It's not so bad. And now we are back to
the lamp here.
Yeah, we're back to manual scrollers.
Now, moving on to the first section where the genie is platforms, you'll be able to answer this question. As I understand it, the platforms you get are based entirely on the number of lives you have. Is that not right?
Yeah, exactly. If you have 1 or 2 lives, you will get the normal pattern, which is what you want for the speedrun because it's the fastest one. If you have 0 lives, you will get only clouds, which is supposed to be easy. And 3 or more, and you will get a harder pattern, but that's less optimal.
I prefer just to have the ones that didn't have balloons, or the platforms always drove me nuts. I mean, you can get the horse leap, as I call it, which is optimal for being able to move across, but you just can't miss it, and I missed it a lot. Nice glide there for Cats. Yeah. That'll push her to the end.
Yeah, Cats is just not trying to do the really complicated big jump at the end. She just.
JKL is not far behind. This room to me is probably the most unusual because the optimization I didn't quite understand. Take